So we're going to be talking about the brain. This is Sunshine State Standard SC.912.L.14.26, and this is the simplest standard. In fact, science teachers kind of think of this as a fairly ridiculous standard because it's very simple. You identify the major parts of the brain on diagrams or models, and you're going to be limited to having to identify the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the pons, medulla oblongata, brainstem, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. Items will not assess the function of the major parts of the brain. And so this is kind of silly because all you have to do is be able to identify the parts of the brain. And so as you study for this, just learn the parts of the brain. I think there's a total of what they were right here, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, but 4 of them are easy. Okay, so first thing I want to show you is one of the biggest problems is you don't know which way you're going to be looking at the brain. You're going to be looking at it where your face, the head of it's facing left. This is where the face would be over here. Or you can be looking at it where it's facing right. Okay, that's the biggest part. And by the way, you've now seen the whole presentation today. One thing that I know they're not going to do is show it to you from the top. This is what they call a superior view. And even though it is nice to know which is the front and the back, and you'll know it's the back because it's got kind of an opening there. Okay, I don't know how you to remember that, but that's kind of that little opening right there is the back of the brain. The front of the brain doesn't really, it's got that dent, but it's not quite as open. You can't see most of the parts of the brain from here. You're only looking at maybe 2 or 3 parts here, and so I can promise you they're not going to show you what's called the superior, but from the side, you need to be able to recognize the parts of the brain. Now there are 4 lobes: the frontal, the parietal, the occipital, and the temporal. Now the frontal, that's easy to remember because guess where it's at? In the front. The other 3 are, kind of weird. I kind of remember FPOT or FPOT, however you want to think about it. And I kind of touch the front of my face, my forehead, and go F, and then I touch the middle of the top of my head and P, the very back of my head in the O, and then up underneath is the T. That's the way I remember it, and I really don't know how else to tell you to remember it. It's pretty straightforward. FPOT, and you just touch F, P, O, and then T. I know you can't see me, but I just did that. All right, so that's the way to remember it. Now, there are more parts that you have to know, but those are 4 of the 10 right there. Out of the way, boom, done, easy. FPOT, and you start with the front for the frontal, right? The hardest part is remembering which way the brain is pointing. So both of these brains are pointing where the face is to the left. And so, you're just going to have to be able to, if they flip it around, just be able to recognize that this little stem to me kind of points to the back. It's kind of like aerodynamic. It's like it's moving, and the stem is kind of dragging behind. All right. So there's a few more parts here. There's this little structure right here called the cerebellum, and that's going to be a little confusing because there's a part right here. Where's it at? Somewhere there's the cerebrum. I don't even have that. The cerebral cortex is here. The cerebrum, the cerebellum, the cerebral cortex. We don't need to know the corpus callosum, the thalamus, or the hypothalamus, or the hippocampus, but you do need to know the medulla and the pons. And I want you to look right here. Look at this spinal column. As it comes up, it hits the medulla, and then it hits the pons. Now sometimes this medulla is called the medulla oblongata, and so don't forget that part is there as well. And so you're going to need to know frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal, cerebellum, okay, the cerebral cortex, which is just this area here, right, cerebral cortex, and then spinal column, medulla oblongata, and pons, okay. And this just shows you both sides. I don't know what else to say. Frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal, cerebellum. Then you got the spinal cord, hits the medulla oblongata, which hits the pons, and then somewhere right here is the cerebral cortex. That's it. You just covered a whole standard right there. Now, I mean, there's questions in the check yourself here quiz, but it's just really, I think there's 9, and they point to 9 things and just try to find it. That's it. Like I said, I think the biggest problem you're going to have is which way is the brain facing. That way you'll know which way is the front. You're going to have 4 lobes, the cerebellum, and then really the 3 parts of this of this brainstem. Okay, uh, the spinal cord, the medulla oblongata, and the pons. All right. Wow, this is the shortest one, huh? It's only 5 minutes, but that's it. So go take the Check Yourself Here quiz, and yeah, good luck.